Hey guys, hey, it's Heavy2 here. I think I'm changing my name to my new channel to like Guy on the Pot. I think it might be kind of fitting since I spend most of my videos in here or outside. But anyway, I just wanted to go over some things. I got some information off a couple websites when I was at the library the other day. And this is from Targeted Individuals United Association. And I'm just going to kind of read it to you guys. It's kind of some good information to kind of know what we're kind of dealing with. Funded organizations such as Raytheon, DARPA, NASA, UCL, CIA, etc. targets victims are often covertly and illegally implanted with RFID chips, radio remote frequency identification devices. These type transmitter chips are positive IDs or very chips. Some are occasionally implanted with miniature nano biochips, stimulators and transmitters, mostly for GPS tracking purposes, and or for the constant nervous and neurological stimulation of the chosen target. Targets can then be remotely connected to via radio type frequency signals transmitted to the chips, thus the mind and body being in theory wirelessly connected to and unnaturally stimulated. Most victims complain of being harassed and tortured by unseen directed energy beams, signals, and frequencies, or even claim to hear voices, synthetic telepathy, V2K, Alan Frey, being sent to their brains and or via larynx and nervous systems, obviously causing the targets distress, emotional and psychological torment, and psychological pain. In the scientific world, it was recently come to light that every individual's brain emits a unique or brainwave of biosignature. These unique ULF, extra ultra low frequencies, brainwave signatures can be tracked, monitored, and mapped onto a super neural computer via microwave carried signals from your local phone towers. Drones are via scalar waves that are unique waveforms that can be rebounded from your brain and body via local cell towers and possibly satellites looping real-time information to the so-called controllers. The main signatures are logged as a unique type of fingerprint for easy detection and identification of specific individuals, with the brain's EEG patterns are constantly monitored and updated in real time for ease of mind manipulation of a target. This practice can also, these intelligent agencies are rogue operatives to track and monitor a target nearly anywhere on the earth. This process is better known as RNM, which is remote neural monitoring, which most of us kind of know, or brain mapping. They can access and manipulate private thoughts utilizing verbatism, audible thoughts coherent only to the individuals, and manipulate a target's physical and cognitive functions to a minor extent via brain frequency manipulators. What is more terrifying is the fact that the soon microchips and transmitters may be a thing of the past as technology quickly advances, much to the detriment of people in our modern day societies. Targets claim they are constantly harassed and abused, often gang-stalked and monitored 24/7 by mind-controlled societies. Targets claim they are constantly harassed and abused, often gang-stalked and monitored 24/7 by mind-controlled people, you or perps. Watch this facts-based Hollywood movie. I guess there's a click button on there you can watch. But again, targets can also be monitored by low-orbiting satellite drones, possibly by paid-off neighbors or scientists, utilizing directed energy weapons and tracking via internet or local cell towers, with cell phone type carrier waves, GPRS, like sat-nav systems. Most harassment and stalking activities of targets are caused by extreme right-wing groups, waves like sat-nav systems. Most harassment and stalking activities. Oh wait, I just read that. COINTELPRO, CIA, MI5 types, perhaps utilizing gay homo agenda groups, pedophiles, rogue neuroscientists, psychiatrists, ex-cons and probational criminals, and various other organized or disorganized snoop groups. Other possible perpetrators are the military factions, divisions, police groups, religious sects, mentally ill sector, ex-prisoners, drug addicts, cults, and any lay person willing to assist and gain in these atrocious and inhumane crimes. There are several or more reasons why people become targets, and this usually has relations to possibly conflicts by ancient bloodlines you may have descended from, or past events you may not be aware of, accomplished by yourself, relatives, or perhaps your forefathers. I kind of find that interesting. Past events you may not be aware of, huh? I must add, Nazism is a strong part of this mind control warfare, as that was the birthplace of modern mind control as we know it. MK Ultra and Project Monarch are the names of these programs. Targeting can also be initiated due to the sexual affiliation, pride, prejudice, jealousy, and most likely due to manipulation and bribes and cash incentives. Some other pathetic reasons are due to the sadistic desires of these human centipede-type paperclip scientists, wealthy aristocrats, or military-type personnel wishing to test out their new control toys, so to speak. Bioweapons, electronic weapons, or unfortunate, unwilling, and unwitting citizens. Other very extreme reasons would be due to the messy divorce, child custody, unrequited love, whistleblowing, revenge, differences in social, political, or religious beliefs, tactical positioning, and actively deniable cases of provoked suicide, assassinations, etc. All in all, this is done with the primary aim of destabilizing society, of provoking a societal breakdown or civil war with chaos in order to create new order and laws that further strip society of their rights and freedom. If you are a perp, get out when you can. And then I had a little bit more here. Another claimed purpose for these assaults is apparently to control and destroy specific key targets, mentally, socially, and economically, weakening them to the desperate, docile, and vulnerable states whereupon they are more easily manipulated, coaxed, and controlled, to make them covert assassins. This can also be done to fulfill and satisfy the so-called sadistic desires and fantasies of socially excluded sociopath controllers, or perhaps simply to drive a target to suicide. Let's see how far we can push them, is kind of a quote they like to use. Tactics typically used by these mobsters are as follows. They firstly attempt to discredit targets in some way, utilizing tactical lies, possibly visual, audible manipulation, false evidence, and deceitful recordings or inconvenient videos on these targets. When successfully character assassinating the target, they effectively control both those they deceive, the perps, and the targets, and the game begins. These manipulated perpetrators and targets begin embarking on a psychological warfare and sometimes Tom and Jerry type antics of simple bullying and intimidation techniques, rendering the victimized targets weak and submissive, usually suffering from what appears to be extreme paranoia, insomnia, and solitude due to the mind control and stalking activities. This isolation gradually forces targets into a state of depression and secluded state of hibernation, causing them in fact to be alienated from others and themselves and from everyone around them. This is what I like to call a synthetic post-traumatic illness, or a forced mental illness. Misdiagnosis by the psychiatrists of targeted individuals are a common occurrence. It happens often and deliberately, but I will explain this in more detail later. I must state that a vast majority of psychiatrists and neurologists are indeed no strangers to the targeted individual situation. In fact, they are likely a cause. NB. I must add that many targets have their perceptions manipulated, forced to perceive the world around them as an enemy. Need not remind anyone that the human mind is a very powerful organ with powerful effects and capabilities. It is also a fact that quantum scalar waves, as well as tachyons, can exceed the speed of light, thus travel backwards in time as we are in the light realm as human beings. Nothing theoretically travels faster. This remarkable Einstein rediscovery and phenomenon of time travel is completely provable and factual. Anything surpassing the speed of light moves backwards in time before the initial point is started. From mind controllers and intelligent operatives, both understanding and utilizing this concept, have devised technologies that confirm this understanding and test it regularly on a society and the targets. A technology that can allow the manipulation of a target's mind prior to the events that will transpire in their immediate future. Yes, this may sound ludicrous, but so too would be the explanation of a touchscreen phone and mobile devices 30 years ago. The fact is, the military and government science divisions are far more advanced than many may assume, and most modern technologies we utilize today may be more than 10 years older than the proposed you may now be thinking. So how does this link to targets? I will explain this phenomenon briefly in a moment. Another fact, perps or gang stalkers may not always be such. They in fact can be innocent people whom are either mind controlled to like a target, or targets are manipulated to perceive these people or perps for argument's sake as threats. To better understand this concept, I will give an example. The controller has seen a man in your immediate future shout a name or a title, police, as an example. The controllers will then issue words to that effect or manipulate a target's subconscious in regards to the word associated with the via remote influence V2K, or a various form of subliminal auditory voice. So the target begins thinking of police. The perp will then state the word police, perhaps abruptly, and you as the target will automatically perceive that person as a perpetrator or someone involved in your harassment. It is also possible the perp could be mind controlled and manipulated to state these words that you as a target either think or the controller has forced into your subconscious beforehand. This may also be used with your families and friends. So begin to alienate yourself, thinking they are also involved. You will begin to alienate yourself in this stalking and harassment. No, people are also being manipulated around you and may be emotionally manipulated via ELF waveforms. Please keep this in mind. This traumatizing government harassment and abuse is often set up and by corporations, phone companies, corrupt businesses, organized criminals, street gangs, right-wing extremists, doctors, dentists, lawyers, or anyone who stands a chance of making any money off these innocent victims, whilst gathering unique intel, COINTELPRO, and testing out their newly purchased weapons and its control effectiveness. As previously mentioned, subconscious mind manipulation and money are often the biggest incentive for what I call perps, perpetrators, and gang stalkers. Others are either manipulated through their vigilant mind frames and convinced that they are doing good deeds and the laws work, when in fact it is quite the opposite. They're often tricked and sometimes mind controlled into attacking someone more like themselves. These alienated targets are usually accused of evil and heinous crimes, sexual abuses, drug dealing, or thefts, and such, which these perps may consider plausible enough to fuel their stalking and harassment activities and deeds. I call this incentive-based targeting. Yet, in theory, those they attack and stalk are no more guilty than they are or were prior to their stalking activities. The instigators or top personnel enjoy confidently the bullying crimes set against these targets. So in effect, their employee perps become the criminal villains and condemned souls. Eventually, society destroys itself, encircling the targeted individuals. Bullseye. This harassment is done until all of the majority of the perps are manipulated, brainwashed, and controlled, and the system implodes with everyone becoming mentally unstable, insecure, obsessive, developing compulsive disorders, insecurities, and hateful attitudes. An enveloping and self-destructive mindset and put it into all the associated. Although with the slow realization of their illicit and disturbing behavior crimes, the perps can often become very guilty, overwhelmed, and turn hateful, either embracing their new state of being or evil, or posing as a target to assist genuine victims. The irony is the targets themselves, whom always try to remain informed, strong, and vigilant, tend not to be easily manipulated, as these perps are, and find a means to avoid conflict and maintain a positive outlook, effectively confusing the perps and causing them, in essence, to go crazy. There's nothing more disturbing than realizing you're pursuing, hurting, and possibly killing an innocent person whom you, or should I say, they once were. It seems inevitable that the slaves will one day turn against their masters, and targets inevitably celebrated for their bravery and strength in these or those troublesome times. People may ask why. It is simple. Control. Problems, chaos, solution, new order. So I want to throw that out there. And then another one here I was going to read. This one comes from, it's another site that I looked at, and kind of had some interesting stuff on the gang stalking. Anyway, gang stalking is very likely a disinformation term created by U.S. intelligence agencies. It refers to the intense, long-term, unconstitutional surveillance and harassment of a person who has been designated as a target by someone associated with the American security industry. Such operations have nothing to do with criminal gangs. Official domestic counterintelligence operations of this type are apparently perpetrated by federal agents and intelligence security contractors, sometimes with the support of state and local law enforcement personnel. Unofficial operations of this type are apparently perpetrated by private investigators and vigilantes, including former agents and cops, some of whom are members of the Quasi-Governmental Association of Law Enforcement Intelligence Units, the LEIU, sometimes on behalf of corporate clients and others with connections to the public and private elements of America's security industry. The goal of such operations, in the parlance of counterintelligence agents, is disruption of life of an individual deemed to be an enemy or potential enemy of the clients or members of the security state. Arguably, the most accurate term for this form of harassment would be counterintelligence stalking. Agents of the Communist East Germany Stasi state police referred to the process as Zunderzug, German for decomposition or corrosion, and that's spelled Zersetzung, a reference to the severe psychological, social, and financial efforts upon the victim. American and British victims have described the process as no-touch torture, a phrase which also captures the nature of the crime: cowardly, unethical, and often illegal, but difficult to prove legally because it generates minimal forensic evidence. The tactics include, but are not limited to, slander, blacklisting, mobbing, intense organized harassment in the workplace, black bag jobs, residential break-ins, abusive phone calls, computer hacking, framing, threats, blackmail, vandalism, street theater, staged physical and verbal interactions with minions of the people who orchestrate the stalking, harassment by noises, and other forms of bullying. Both the facts and the geographical distribution of relevant published news reports, as well as other evidence cited on this website, suggest that such stalking is sanctioned and in some cases orchestrated by federal agencies. However, such reports, credible and anecdotal information, and my own experiences indicate that such stalking is also sometimes used unofficially for personal and corporate vendettas for current and former corrupt employees or law enforcement and intelligence agencies, private investigators, and their clients. Since counterintelligence stalking goes far beyond surveillance into the realm of psychological terrorism, it is essentially a form of extrajudicial punishment. As such, the harassment is illegal. Even when done by government, it clearly violates, for example, the U.S. Constitution's Fourth Amendment, which prohibits unwarranted searches, and the Sixth Amendment, which guarantees the right to a trial. Such operations also violate similar fundamental rights defined as state constitutions. Stalking is also specifically prohibited by the criminal codes of every state in America. Crimes against Americans at the hands of corrupt government agents and private security thugs have a long history in the U.S. The FBI's COINTELPRO counterintelligence program scandal in the 1970s was the most notorious, high-profile example, but similar abuses of power by red squads, state and local law enforcement intelligence units, and private detectives date back to the 19th century. Concerns about America's deep state are on the rise. Monday's broadcast of Tucker Carlson's show on Fox News is worth nothing. As an example, 3 segments about current threats to American democracy, threats of domestic origin. I would describe the main points this way. Number 1, U.S. intelligence agencies essentially have no real oversight of accountability. Number 2, major corporate news outlets such as the New York Times, the Washington Post sometimes lie on behalf of the spy agencies, such as the DOJ. Often the deception takes forms such as deliberate mischaracterizations and lies of omission. Number 3, increasingly aggressive censorship on the internet platforms and unseen changes to search algorithms by technology corporations pose an obvious threat to free speech for both the left and the right in the modern version of the public square. Note, The show can also be viewed at the Fox News site. And then that's pretty much what I had on that. And then about the law, I wanted to kind of go over. This guy's a member of the Parliament, Calgary Southwest. I guess his name is Stephen Harper, and this is something he wrote. Organized stalking is a form of terrorism used against an individual in a malicious attempt to reduce the quality of a person's life so they will have a nervous breakdown, become incarcerated, institutionalized, experience constant mental, emotional, or physical pain, or become homeless and or commit suicide. This is done using well-orchestrated accusations, lies, rumors, bogus investigations, setups, framings, intimidation, overt or covert threats, vandalism, thefts, sabotage, torture, humiliation, emotional terror, and general harassment. It is a ganging up by members of the community who follow an organizer and participate in a systematic terrorizing of an individual. Organized gang stalking can involve a group in the hundreds to thousands harassing a single person or a family 24/7. The victim is stalked in a mass by car, foot, bike, and air in order to alienate and isolate the victim. The goals of the gang stalking are to provoke the victim to assault someone and get arrested, make the victim seem delusional or mentally ill, see gaslighting, make the victim so depressed they become suicidal. Tactics used are relentless color harassment, noise harassment, air harassment, hand signals, electronic monitoring, inside the home and car, complete invasion of privacy, redirecting of phone calls, emails, postal mail, workplace mobbing, directed conversation, and innuendo, erratic, aggressive driving, bizarre, rude bullying behavior in the community, and much more. Police and fire department are often involved in the stalking, so the victim feels like they have nowhere to turn, and it is hard to prove. This is extreme criminal activity that is becoming more common and needs to be outlawed. And I'm trying to see what else. A reporter who broke the story on, I guess this is from the American Civil Liberties Union, National Security Project. Janet Winter, we know that since March, thousands of ordinary Americans who are not under any investigation or any watch list have been followed by teams of armed air marshals from the moment they get to the airport, through the flight and up until they record the license plate number of the vehicle that picks them up in their arrival city. And they write down minute by minute details of everything they do. If they go to the bathroom, if they change clothes, if they, as you said, touch their face, and anyone they interact with. The details about what kind of phone they have, were they on the phone, were they having a conversation, were they texting, what were they reading, are you on a computer, what type of computer, and also, is that an iPhone, what color is the case? It's a huge amount of information, and there are still a lot of questions. Democracy Now! Host Amy Goodman asks whether the TSA bumps people from their flight reservation so its agents can sit close to the surveillance targets. Goodman says, what happens if the plane is fully booked? Do the air marshals knock people off out of their seats to sit next to their suspect? Winter responds, oh, absolutely. Once I found out the details of this, I of course thought, oh wow, is this why we get bumped from planes all the time, even if we've booked well in advance? And the answer to that is not 100%. I certainly wouldn't say, but yes, they bump people from flights every single day to sit near the person who they are targeting, who in this case is someone who has no reason to be followed. So, and then there's a quote, or it's kind of a poem that was in my package. I met with a group of targeted individuals and I got some information from them, and this poem was in there, and you read it from the bottom to the top. So, and it's I'll just kind of read it. Unless we turn things around, that might be true. People thought we couldn't come back. We knew that was a joke. Working hard was how we handled our problems. Giving up is something we never did. Changing our world for the better will not be easy, but we will try. Forgetting about that time is a dumb thing to do. Being loving, respectful, and kind is the way to go. Living only for money and power is a waste, and we know we actually succeeded thinking that. Our generation was a failure. This is wrong. The truth is, we were the peak of mankind. Never will anybody say our generation will be known for nothing, our generation. So it was by a kid named Jordan. He was in the 8th grade. But anyway, I thought I would do that video for you guys and give you guys some information on targeted individuals, some stuff that I kind of dug up. And anyway, I'm going to get some sleep, so I hope you guys are doing well, and we'll catch you guys on another one. This is Heavy T. I'm out. Peace.